To make the cord that we're going to wrap around the wreath ring, the brand of yarn I'm using is this. I'm going to write the information there. It's the Lion brand. It's under the category of Chanel. I'm not sure if I'm exactly saying that right. And it's a terracotta color. So it looks like this. It's going to look a little different probably on my camera. It's not going to give it the right orangey color. It's a pretty color in person. It may not show up like I said as well. It's really soft. It's a bulky yarn. So you're going to need something similar to this. So if you can't find the specific one, then just find something that's very similar. Again, these came in 2.5 ounce skeins that had 100 yards of the yarn, and you're gonna need at least 2 to 3 of these. At least 2, possibly a third one, just in case you want to fill in any more spots. Just to make sure. It's always better to have too much yarn for a project than not enough. You're also going to need a spool loom. Now this is my spool loom right here. I've actually taken it apart so you can have 2 different little mini looms. Mine doesn't always, after I took it apart, it doesn't stay together as much, but I could always take like a little piece of tape or something, even like a painter's tape, just to keep it together if I want to have the actual handle. But I was able to take it apart, so I can only need this size here. If you choose to use a bigger one, then you may or may not need more yarn in order to make your rope. So what we're going to do, excuse me, is you're going to cast on this, and you're basically going to do this process until you're done with that skein of yarn. And we'll end up with having roughly about this long of a cord that we can wrap around the wreath, and we're going to do 2 of them. So again, it may be a little off because I have used some of this for a pumpkin hat, but I know this one right here is a full skein of it. The one I used for the part that I already have on there was off of one that wasn't quite a full skein. So definitely you need 2 skeins of this yarn in order to make the project. I would say get a third just in case you run into any issues or you need extra filling around some of the ring. And again, you're also going to need a wire wreath ring. I got mine at the dollar store for, at the Dollar Tree for $1. It was a 14-inch one. It's hard to show it all on camera, but I've used this type of ring before, and I'll insert, a picture right now so you can see what it looks like. So once you got your wreath ring and you got your yarn and you got your spool loom and you need to use only 3 pegs, we're doing a similar thing that we did when I did one of the necklaces with beads, and I'll have a link down to that video of the necklace with beads that's using the same type of idea. You're going to take and you want to drop down 6 to 7, a good chunk of yarn down at first to cast it on. We need this string later on for tying it to the wreath ring, so you want to give yourself enough of a tail. So I'm going to give myself enough of a tail, probably 5 to 7 inches, and then I'm going to cast on. And all I'm going to do is wrap the 3 pegs and work my way up. I'm doing a triangle shape. So I'm wrapping around and doing a triangle pattern. Then I lay it off to the side and I knit it over. I know the pink and the orange may be harder to see, but again, I didn't have another small loom. And I'm just going to knit it over, and you can pull on your tail down here as you're knitting it over to kind of lock it in place. And you're going to work your way around, and you're going to knit over all those spots. The first knitting over is usually a very loose one because we're just casting it on, and then you're going to go pushing it down, and then you're going to pull on your tail that's underneath. So when we do it again, we're going to take it and we're going to follow that same pattern. We're going to wrap around one, come over to the next, wrap around again, wrap around the one, wrap around the second, come up to the third, and lay it off to the side and knit it over. By my second strand here on the top, okay? And you're just gonna, then after you're done, just kind of give it a little push down, give the tail a little tug as well, and you're going to continue that process. So again, we're just taking the yarn and we're wrapping around the one, coming over to the other, wrapping it around, going up to the third, wrap it around, lay it off to the side, and then knit it over. So the way I'm holding it on camera makes it harder for me to do. And I know, again, I apologize for the pink on orange if it's difficult to see. So again, one more time to show you, and then you're just going to continue it until you're done with the skein of yarn. So again, you come down, wrap around, go over, wrap around, go up to the one side, around, and then lay it off to the side and knit it over. And it's a fuzzy yarn, so just make sure you're grabbing the part you need to. And then push it down and tug that. So again, just continue that until you get ready to bind off. You're going to also want to leave about a similar amount of tail for, when you cast it off as well. So go ahead and keep working until you get your skein of yarn all the way gone, and you'll end up with a roughly, like I said, a cord about that long. The first cord I will measure that I've already done one cord, so this is my second cord that I'm doing. So again, I'm going to need at least 2 of these cords. One might be a little different in length than the other because of the fact that I didn't have a full skein. I had a little bit left. So I will write down the measurements to both cords that I had that I used. But again, I would say to be safe, you're going to use 2 full skeins of yarn and then have a third on hand just in case you need it to fill in if you want the project to be fluffier, or just to have on hand in case you want to use it for adding any embellishments to it. So okay, go ahead and finish making your cord, and I'll be back to show you how to bind it off. So when you're ready to cast it off, it's a pretty simple process. What we're going to simply do is we're going to end up taking a peg. Once I find my tool here, we're going to take a peg, the loop that's on one peg, and move it over to like our starting peg. So you're just going to lift it up, move it over to whatever one you want to, on the starting peg that has the working yarn on it. Once you place it on, go ahead and knit it over. Now go to your other one that has one and do the same thing. Move it over to the first starting peg and knit that over. Now what you're going to do is you're going to cut yourself a tail. I usually say between 5 to 7 inches just to make sure you have enough to work with. You can always trim it later. So I'm going to cut my tail. Now what I'm going to do is take the working yarn that's right here, the tail, lay it underneath the loop, and I'm going to go in through the loop, and I'm going to place that working tail there and kind of work it through the loop. Just like you're purling. You're just going to basically have your thing go right through. I mean, you can use a crochet hook, but you can just kind of pull it through as if you were pulling. Pull the yarn all the way through and take it off your loom. And then give it a little tug. If you want, you can put a knot in it. But because we're going to be wrapping it around the wreath, we don't necessarily have to worry about it. So that's the first part you need to do. You need to get your 2 cords done. So again, once you have your cord ready, then we move on to the next part of actually assembling the wreath. Now once you have your brain, again, it's a little hard to get the whole thing in the picture, or in the viewfinder, but you only need to see me work a part of it anyway. Now when you're ready, you're going to take one cord. Now what I did is I kind of rolled them up into a ball to make it easier to wrap around the wreath. But I rolled it up into kind of like a ball to make it easier to wrap around. So when I find my starting part, and when I did measure them, I measured from when they started being the cord. I did not include the little tails on the end. I only measured the actual cord part that I made. So it's up to you which way you think is going to work best for you. So when you're ready, you're going to tie this to the wreath, and we're going to use this and kind of wrap the wreath. I want to make this as simple as possible and basically as least amount of steps as possible. So we're going to take this and we want to wrap it, because I'm going to be wrapping it. I want this to be considered the back. Now I do have a minor little flaw here. I can easily tape that, but because it's going to be hidden by the yarn, I'm not too worried about this part that kind of broke. But if you are, you can easily take a little piece of tape. If you find out that one of your rings has a little bit of a broken part, you can tape that around if you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this, but I want to tie it towards the back. So I'm going to kind of go on the side, and I'm going to wrap on this middle one. So I'm just showing you that I'm kind of going to the back of it. Okay, because I want the one that kind of hangs down. And I'll turn this over, but like I said, I'm going to the back, and I'm picking the kind of middle one, just because it seems to be easiest. And I'm just going to simply tie this to that wire. And I'm going to tie it again. Now if you hear any meowing in about 2 seconds, my cat decided to come downstairs. So we're going to just kind of simply wrap it. And then what you're going to do is once it's tied, go back your other way, and you're just going to start wrapping the cord around. And with this straggle piece, you can hide it in there, or you can save it for later to kind of tuck it in if you want. Towards the back, you will be able to work it in if you need to. I'm not too worried about it right now. We can hide it later. Now, taking your ball of yarn, just simply go ahead and start wrapping it around. You want to kind of keep it snug when you're wrapping it. Like, I'm not going to make it too loose. I want to be snug, and I want to be right next to the part that I just wrapped. Excuse me. So I want to be as next to where I wrapped, and I'm just going to bring it up, put this in the thing, you'll put it through the hole, bring it back around again. It's going to be easier for you because you're not going to be trying to film what you're doing, but you're just going to kind of work it where you move that in, and you're wrapping it all the way around. Now again, I have 2 cords I'm going to try to put on here, which means I will be bunching these up as much as I can to get both cords in. If you want to, you can do a little bit less cord and see if you want a little more spacing in between of it. That's up to you. But again, I want it to be as close to each other as possible. And I'm just going to go around and I'm just going to keep wrapping it. Like I said, I'm bringing it around. I got my ball of yarn here and I'm just throwing it in the middle hole and kind of wrapping it around as I go. So continue this with this cord as much as you can, and then go ahead when you're done with one cord, tie the other one on like you saw, and continue wrapping it until you have the whole wreath covered. Okay, and then I'll meet you back here for the next step. I have the first one pretty much to the end. You want to check it and just make sure it's laying as smooth as you want. Kind of make sure you don't see the wire through it. As you can see, I try to make sure you don't see the wire through it, but you can adjust it if you need to a little bit. And when you get to the starting of the next one, you have 2 choices. You can take your new cord and tie it, these 2 together, and continue wrapping that way, or you can try to tie this one off and start fresh with the new one. So that's your choice. Either tie when you get to the end, depending on where yours end up laying, you can choose to tie this one to it and then start fresh with a new one, or you can choose to tie them 2 together. So I just wanted to give you that little tip. So again, figure out which way you're most comfortable with, and then continue wrapping until the whole wreath is wrapped. Once you get to where you're done wrapping all the yarn around, and I just want to say I actually added an extra 25-inch, roughly 25 to 26-inch piece over here because I didn't have the fullness I actually wanted with the 2 strands. So I apologize for that. I will put the, I will make sure that you know the new measurements. I added a small little section. I didn't quite have enough as I thought I would, but it did wrap it. It just didn't give it the fullness I had wanted, so I added an extra piece. Now when you have the last piece, I actually have the strand from the first one I did and the strand from the second one, or the last one I did. So I'm just going to turn it over to whatever side you want to be. Now keep this in mind. This one I have kind of bows, and so it's a matter of which side do you want to be the front of the wreath and which side you want to be the back. Like this curves, do you want this against the wall where it curves? But if I turn it this way, this, as you can see, is a little more flatter on top, and this is more rounded. So it's whatever side you want. I like the flat part being in front. But what I ended up doing when I got done wrapping is I had the original string from the first one I put on, and the leftover string from the, from the first one I put, last one I put on. So I'm just going to tie them onto the project to join them together. This is what I'm going to consider the back. But if you again want the front to be a little more wavy, you can do that, and you would just make sure you tie it on the opposite side. But we're not going to totally join the ribbon that we're going to be doing onto it. We're going to do a safety pin. That way you can always change up your design. And what I also have is I have 2 stragglers here from the first one and the second that I had put on, that again I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I give this an extra tie too. And what's good is because there's enough left over, I could probably actually use this to hang the project with. But once you get it all done, you can try to trim and hide some of the stragglers if you want, and decide which side you're going to want to be. Do you want the flatter side to be your front of the wreath, or do you want the curved side? So once you know that, the next step has to do with adding a ribbon to it. Now for me, I found this ribbon at the Dollar Tree. I did find the wreath at the Dollar Tree, if I didn't mention that already. I found it last year for $1, and it's a 14-inch one. But I'm not sure if they carry them this year, but you just basically want to go to a craft place or even check Walmart or something and see if they have a metal wreath ring that's 14 inches in diameter. Again, the yarn may change up if you find a different wreath ring that you want to use, so you might want to do a little bit of like a sample up even to get an idea of how much you need. That being said, I found this pretty ribbon at the Dollar Tree, and it has, let me see, It's 2.5 inches by 108 inches, so it's about 3 yards of fabric. And you can see it's a nice wide ribbon. And we're going to end up taking this and we're going to wrap it as well around the wreath. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to trim up my stragglers and everything, and then I'm going to get a safety pin because I don't want to hot glue this to the wreath yet, because I was thinking if we safety pin it right now with this fabric, it should safety pin fine. You can alter, kind of change it up where it is on it if you don't like the way you originally wrap it. Then once you get it set the way you liked it wrapped around the wreath, you could then decide to hot glue the beginning and end pieces. But again, if you do safety pins, you can also change out your ribbon sometime as well if you had wanted to. That's what the idea I had. So I'm going to go get a safety pin and then I'm going to wrap this around. I'm going to pick a starting spot. I'm going to make sure I safety pin it on the whatever I'm considering to be the back of the wreath, and then I'm just going to gently take and wrap it around as closely or loosely as I want. So as you can see in the picture before, I'm going to choose how I want to wrap it around. And when I get to where I'm done, I will have my scissors to trim what I don't need, and I will safety pin that on it. And if I'm happy with it, I will hot glue it down. So again, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to decide how I want to wrap the ribbon, and I'm just going to take, you can keep it on the spool, it'll be easiest for you. You can also find a thinner ribbon or thicker. I mean, it's basically what you want to do, but I really like the idea of the color with the pumpkin and this orange yarn. I think it was gonna be really nice. So again, I'm just gonna go ahead now and I'm gonna safety pin the starting of my ribbon on what I want the back side to be, and then I'm gonna go ahead and wrap the ribbon. And I may try it 2 different ways. I may wrap it this way, I may even turn it around and see how it looks if I wrap it this way and have this be the front. That's what I like, is you can kind of modify this as you go, but this is just to give you guys an idea of how you can take simple things and make something beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach my ribbon, and we'll get to the final ending of this wreath. When it's all done, it's a very simple wreath, but if you stay tuned, I will share with you a couple tips and just ideas that you can do to make this wreath even more your own. But again, the lighting doesn't show up exactly how nice orange it is. I really like the color, I like the simplicity of it compared to my other wreath ring, wreath design I did, which I'll have a link for that down below. But this is just another simple way that you can do a wreath for your home on just using a couple different things. So again, check out your local Dollar Tree. You never know what you can find. I got the wreath from Dollar Tree and I got the ribbon from Dollar Tree, as I mentioned. The yarn was actually a gift from a friend, so I'm unsure of how much that yarn would actually cost. Excuse me. Yeah, it looks very nice. Right now I have it hanging up in my kind of little area I have with candles and stuff, but it might be moved closer to my door. But again, it's just a really simple design. Let's just kind of zoom in here. As you can see, you get a really cool look with the orange of the yarn coming through, and this ribbon was very pretty. It's a lot prettier in person than it may look on this. But again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and again, watch to the end for some ways that you can embellish this wreath a little more. Just a quick little tip too. I didn't want to add a lot of things to this wreath. I wanted to keep it kind of a little more simple. But just to give you a heads up, you can decide to hot glue some fake leaves. I got these at the dollar store last year as well, and they came in quite a bunch. It was a pretty big bag. But you could decide to maybe hot glue some leaves if you wanted. Maybe even go so far as putting some buttons on it if you wanted as well. So don't feel like you have to keep it plain. The idea is it's very basic, as you can see by the picture, but you can also do embellishments and such as well. So keep that in mind of maybe adding in a few leaves or buttons if you want to give it a little more personality. The other thing I noticed is that at the Dollar Tree as well this year is that they have these kind of metal signs. One says welcome, one says thankful, and one says harvest. You could even try to rig these up or hot glue these onto your wreath as well if you want to do something different. Again, I just wanted to keep it kind of a simple process, just a couple different steps that you would need to do. But again, there's a lot you can do to make it your own. Have a great day, everyone.